Welcome to the Gig Stories podcast, as always, with me and him, Christopher Payne. How are you, Chris?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I am doing good. I'm really excited about this episode.
Oh, yeah.
A guest I've long admired, and just such a lovely chat. A lovely chat. But before we get into that, come on, let's have the parish notice board. Is that what
Yeah,
it's
parish notes. Yeah,
Parish notes.
yeah, absolutely. And first off, just a bit of sad news, really. From episode 26, our guest Howard Murray, saxophonist and my father-in-law, he sadly passed away on New Year's Eve, which was the anniversary of his first ever gig. His first ever gig was in 1958. And also it was the 22nd anniversary of my first ever gig with him, as we mentioned on the pod. So yeah, I mean, he was never one for not doing a bit of showmanship, shall we say. So he chose a pretty good date to clock out on. So yeah, just I would just suggest, if you haven't listened to that episode, it is funny and it is interesting and it's loads of fun. And that's not because of us pair of idiots. It's because of Howard. And yeah, just have a check out of the episode, because it's, I hate to say it, but it's what he would have wanted. So yeah,
And it really is worth your while. I didn't know Howard and not met Howard before, and so I couldn't really do any homework either or preparation. And so the episode you hear, it just turned out to be the most fun, genuinely interesting chat. And what I like about it compared to our other chats, you know, we're lucky enough to speak to a lot of sort of professional musicians and musicians who are well known as well. But what I liked about speaking with Howard is that we were speaking to a man of a certain generation who has spent his whole life as a professional musician and actually working the clubs, you know, not touring stadiums with his famous band. How old was Howard?
He had just turned 83. Yes.
So a real generation from back in the days of jazz. And so it was genuine privilege to be able to speak to him and to hear his experiences and his story. As I say, from my point of view, interesting as a working musician. It was just fantastic. What a lovely gentleman he was as well. So yeah, rest in peace, Howard, and have a listen to that episode.
Absolutely. Go well, Howard.
So Christopher, I see one of your beautiful gig shots doing the rounds on social media from the artist themselves, Mr. Carl Barat. You went to see him last week, and they're using one of your photographs. How was that gig?
Oh, it was awesome. It was really good, and it was quite a last minute thing for me. Just thought that would be a nice one to go to, because it was at the Met in Bury, which is one of my favorite venues. And I'd had a day of music already that day. I'd been photographing the Northern Chamber Orchestra in Macclesfield, and so that was quite an early concert. So I did have time only just to get on a train back from Macclesfield to Manchester and then a tram up to Bury, and caught the support band as well, which were a new one to me. They're called the Gulps, and they're managed by Mr. Alan McGee. And
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, I think most people have heard of him. And all I can say is that he's got a good set of ears on him. He knows a decent band
Big,
when he hears
like
them.
Terry Wogan.
I couldn't see, because when he was there, he had his hood up, I think, or did he have a hat? I can't remember, but I did not see his ears. But I have to say that the Gulps were good. They looked like the real deal. They were, unfortunately, the crowd wasn't massive, because support band, they were on at 7:30, which is quite early, I would say.
Yeah.
You'd normally expect the support to be on at least 8:00, and then the band, the headliner on at 9:30 or something. But anyway, they played as if they were playing in front of 1,500 people, and really compelling frontman. They, you know, I kind of want to pigeonhole them, so I'm going to pigeonhole them. They sounded a bit like a kind of punky version of The Cure. They're just good, just knockouts. So they were great. And then Carl Barrett was on with his band doing some of his solo stuff, some of his stuff from the Libertines, and they were.
And that's the first time you've seen him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've not seen the Libertines live. I've not seen Pete live, and first time for Carl. And he was just solidly rock and roll. It was just really good. Just in complete command of what he was doing, and loved it. Really loved it.
We need to go and see the Libertines now.
Yeah, we really do. We really do. So that was part of the Music Venue Trust's Revive Live tour, and there are loads still to come over the next few days. So they've had loads and loads of different gigs over January. Go to the Music Venue Trust website because there's loads of information there. I definitely recommend checking out a band this week if you can, because the Revive Live tour is kind of championing new music, but also championing smaller venues as well. And you might see a bigger band that might not normally play in such a small venue. So definitely worth checking out.
Ooh, that begs a question. I love it when stuff like that happens. What's the biggest band you've seen, I suppose, commercially, in the smallest venue? Which band have you seen that was massive in a small venue?
Well, it'd be difficult not to say Charlatans in Gorilla recently from
the NHS gig,
yeah. But also, as part of Independent Venue Week. Yeah, that's it. Independent Venue Week.
Yes.
At the Met again, I photographed Slow Readers Club.
Wow.
So and obviously they're just standard knockout anytime they play anywhere. I think they would be, or the other one would be James Brown in Bridgewater Hall.
God, that's a belter. That's an absolute belter.
Yeah.
Wowzers, in Bridgewater Hall. I wish I could have seen that. I think my obvious one is U2 in the Astoria. They did a fan club competition. They played one in New York and one in London.
Yeah. I think we talked about that with Rick McMurray. Yeah.
Oh right. Okay. Yeah. That was just
because he was there. He was there as well.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he was. Yeah. Weird seeing stuff like that. So Anyway, I don't want to turn it into a competition because we're fed up of competitions, aren't we?
Well, one of us is, by all accounts. So towards the end of last year, I put in a list of favourite tracks to Excess Manchester as part of their Your Excess feature, which they do every weekday in Sophie Svensson's show. And what you do is you put 20 tunes together, send them in, and if they like them, they will play a selection of them over the course of 1 hour. So you're essentially programming that hour. So you did 10 and I did 10, and we thought we'd do it as a little competition to see who was the best.
Oh, no. You thought we'd do that.
No, we thought that,
already there.
Collectively, we thought
explained more than I knew. So before Christmas.
Not so sure about that.
Chris just said, give me 10 tracks that we can play on the radio. We'll choose 10 each. I didn't know this was a competition. And I did certainly not know that they only play a handful. And in Chris's head, whoever's list has played the most is the winner.
No, not the winner, the best. Get it right. Winner, the best. Yeah.
Come on, either or both. I'm waiting with bated breath. What was the results? I can see the smug look on your face.
I won 6-4.
You won 6-4. Whatever. They didn't play 6 of your tracks.
They played 6 of my tracks. They played 4 of yours, and they played one which neither of us chose for some reason. I've got no idea why. And yeah, I don't think it would. Well, I mean, nothing against America by Razorlight. I've got nothing against America by Razorlight.
Have you got anything against Razorlight though?
Not really. I mean, I don't have any strong feelings either way, to be honest.
That's so funny, because when I said the same to Johnny Burrell about you, he was like, I haven't got strong feelings about Chris Payne either way. So let me again just highlight, had I known that this was some kind of competition as to how many of these songs would be played on excess, daytime radio, I'm not sure I would have plumped with Jeff Buckley's Last Goodbye or Radiohead's Weird Fishes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says. Yeah,
it's a fair point, but
go on. Tell me which 4 of mine were chosen, and then which 1 million of yours were chosen.
Motorcycle Emptiness by Manic Street Preachers. There's a shock. Will We Talk by Sam Fender. Again, shocking. There we go. Yeah, I'm really shocked that you chose that. Regret by New Order. And Telling Stories by Charlatans.
Possibly their best ever song.
Yeah. So
go on, read your efforts out.
Pure Essence, This Feeling.
Okay, banger.
McCallum and Butler, Yes.
Okay, one of the greatest songs ever written.
Blur, The Universal.
I love British Gas.
Doves, There Goes the Fear.
Anything they play.
Shed 7 on Standby.
Love them.
And Gaz Coombs, I actually asked for The Girl Who Fell to Earth, and they played Deep Pockets instead, but I think it probably still stands because they played.
All right, so
they did play. No, they did play Gaz Coombs, which was my choice.
And that means they played 5 of yours, 4 of mine. I think you stuck on the end of my list somehow, Razorlight America. So that makes it 5-all, a draw.
No, I think it's 5-4, and well, we'll call America Razorlight a half point each, so it's 5.5 to 4.5.
Well, actually, you've just said that you don't have feelings for Razorlight, and I love them. America by Razorlight is one of my favorite songs ever, and I put it as number 11 in case they needed to replace something like Weird Fishes by Radiohead.
Okay. So are you technically calling it a draw, Donald Trump? Yeah? Is that what's happening? This is wow, unbelievable. This is just an affront to democracy. You're going to storm you're going to storm the Capitol.
No, I'm going to storm Heaton Park. Yeah, and that'll learn you. And then
you'll be down the excess Manchester studios with your spear and your hat with horns on it.
Exactly, my Razorlight T-shirt with America on. Yeah, because I love America. Yeah. This competition's going to continue.
Do you know what? Because I'm such a lovely fella, I'm going to say, okay, it was a draw. So it means we need to do it again, and this time. So we'll see if we can do it again with excess. We'll choose completely different tunes, and then we'll see. And you'll have all the knowledge to your fingertips, so you won't be able to, blame the voting machines or whatever.
I'm just going to choose all Cortinas and Oasis.
Right. Okay. Right. The game is afoot. The game is afoot.
Talking of games and feet and football, wow. You like Liverpool, and so does our next guest.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you see that?
A man of impeccable taste. Absolutely.
Well, a man of taste.
Yeah. So yeah, Mr. James Walsh of Starsailor and of James Walsh fame as well. I was putting together the playlist on Spotify for his webpage, which you can view now on our website, gigstoriespodcast.com.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so his playlist is all, I was going to say it's all Razorlight tunes.
He loves them. He absolutely can't get enough of
Razorlight.
No,
it's all Starsailor and James Walsh solo stuff as well, which is just gorgeous. And one of the tunes that you'd put forward for the Excess playlist was Jeff Buckley. tune. What tune was it again?
Last Goodbye.
Last Goodbye. But honestly, if there's a voice that is like a twin of James Walsh's, it's Jeff Buckley's. Honestly, wow. I just think the falsetto that he gets, that it's got this real lovely vibrato, and yeah.
I remember seeing Starsailor for the first time, and well, even hearing them, I could hear that voice on record and just think this voice is just gorgeous. And then seeing them live, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I do love that album. I like those first two albums. I know the second one wasn't as commercially successful as the first, but I'm not asked about all that. It was a great record, and I really like Starsailor, and I really like his solo stuff, James's solo stuff. There's just a beautiful, fragile, wonderful richness to him. I just think it's great. And he's a lovely, thoughtful guy. That's what I enjoyed about this chat, is he put a lot of thought into his answers and some unexpected stories and anecdotes, some belters. I did not expect Nickelback to be turning up in this particular interview.
Nor did I.
Exactly. So no more talking. Sit back and enjoy Mr.
James Walsh.
Yes. As always, with me, Alex, and my bespectacled friend Christopher. And Chris, which room are you in this episode? Where are you recording this?
I'm in my son's room again. So yeah, we're having work.
You
done
look
on
like
the
you've
house,
changed position, though. You look like you've changed position.
but I have left the room since the last time we recorded. So I've got a different jumper on.
I like that. So I'm very excited about our guest today, and I'm failing at not being a fanboy and have long admired this man's voice and his music and lyrics. And so it's a pleasure to welcome James Walsh from Starsailor. Welcome to the Gig Stories podcast, James.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, honestly, it is our pleasure. And your music has played a big part of my life over the past years. I was thinking about how many years it was, and obviously the tour that you're on, and it just blows my mind. How does that make you feel, James? 20 years.
Quite proud in a way. Obviously a little bit old, but yeah, I feel like you go through a stage just after an album's come out and it's really sort of hyped up and everyone talks about it, where you almost try and escape that hype and that atmosphere and think, no, I'm going to prove that I can do other things and I can be something else. I need to work out how to turn this phone off. Sorry. But yeah, I think when it comes round to like 20 years and you see people's kids in the crowd, there is an immense kind of sense of pride that it's lasted this long and people still get excited about us doing gigs, because there's certainly music that people listened to 20 years ago that they're embarrassed to admit that they did. So we're glad that people have, the fans of ours have kind of stayed true.
Yeah. This is a genuine comment, and I've admitted to being a fanboy, so you may not believe me, but I think when I think of Lullaby and Alcoholic and Good Souls and songs and that album, which honestly I played to death, it almost hasn't aged. I feel that some of those songs you could release right now and they would sound completely relevant. Whereas there's other artists from that time and albums that I've listened to and have seen and still listen to, and I can tell that it's aged, but that's not a bad thing. I think people think that that's a negative. But I think your music and those songs still sound really relevant. How does it feel to you? Does it feel the same to you, because you're the one that has actually played those for the past 20 years?
I think I'd agree with you to a certain extent, where musically and musically and production wise, whatever, it's kind of stayed quite fresh. And the only aspect that feels slightly like it's aged a little bit, or not so much aged, but it's harder to relate to, is the lyrics were kind of written from the gaze of a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So looking back on it now, like, I had a lot more life experience, and it is kind of weird sort of singing the words and the emotions and the thoughts of little me. That's the aspect that's kind of feels slightly, I'm trying to get the words right, because it is we are still incredibly proud of the songs, and I enjoy performing them, but maybe the lyric part of it is more of a performance rather than conveying something that apart from songs like Good Souls, the message of that song still holds true.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the other songs, I'm telling a story and conveying this message of the young me rather than me saying sort of how I feel about things now.
Yeah, I suppose it's like a diary almost, because the lyrics are so personal. If you look back at a diary that you were writing 20 years ago, that diary entry would be absolutely valid for that time. But it's not you now. But yeah, I suppose maybe you kind of sing in some of them ironically a little bit now, or with some dramatic irony, I suppose. If you're to get all Shakespearean about it, singing something where the meaning is changed because of what's happened since you wrote them.
Yeah, and the melodies are still really good as well, and still stand up. So yeah, I don't want to downplay it too much or undermine it too much.
Would you say that, and whether it's now, then, or the same, when you are writing lyrics, would you say you are, so that album specifically, as we're talking about it, would you say that you were autobiographical, or were you a storyteller and just putting because you said, 20-year-old me, was it 20-year-old storyteller you, or were you actually putting a lot of your life experience into those lyrics?
Mainly autobiographical. A little bit of storytelling. Like, people often ask me, like, is my dad an alcoholic, and do I have sort of direct experience of that? And that particular song is more an observation of characters that I'd meet, and babies that would be sort of brought into a pub and pass around everyone, and a kind of comment on nature and nurture. And that's another song as well that you kind of as a 20-year-old, I felt confident that I could sing and write about whatever I wanted and just shoot from the heart kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel much more what's the word? Just much more reticent to touch on subjects like that and to write so directly about it, because it's a much more complex issue than maybe I realized at the time. I think it's the same for most. It's in your sort of young adulthood, you're completely this sort of weird mix of huge self-confidence, and I know who I am, and I know what I believe, and I know what I'm doing, and then half of you is like completely fragile and sensitive.
Yeah. And also, I suppose years later, it's only years later that you understand what you didn't know at the age of 20.
Yeah.
But you probably, if you did at the time, you probably wouldn't have written the song. So it's.
Is your writing process quite different now to how it was back then? And this is for someone who's not a musician, songwriter, so it's a genuine question.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I guess I'm sort of a bit less self-conscious about the kind of songs that I'm writing. Part of that's to do with when you sign to a label, they expect a certain number of ballads, a certain number of up-tempo tracks, and they're sort of, you're conscious of what an album needs or what a project needs. Whereas now my writing's a lot freer and a lot more. I've got a few spare hours, so I'll just sit and write a song and see what happens.
Did you find that was the case more for the first album, or was it the so-called difficult second album that you were you were kind of, you had pressure on you?
Yeah, I guess even recording the first album, because we'd got signed and we'd released the Fever EP, and I think Good Souls had maybe come out as well. So we still needed to, I think we needed 3 or 4 more songs for the record. So there's definitely a bit of pressure and thing in the back of your mind that lots of people are going to hear these songs, and we need to make sure they fit with the flow and the sound of the record.
So moving on to now, and you are about to take that album on tour. How does that feel now? Do you feel 20 years later confident? Do you feel like you have to rehearse even more, or are you excited? Are you nervous? What's going on in your head?
Well, we played a gig in Warrington on the like the actual 20-year anniversary of the album.
That's right.
So that went really well, and we did a few days rehearsal for that. So yeah, it's just because, so spoiler alert, the set for the tour isn't going to be a million miles away from that gig. We're just going to have a little sort of freshen up, and yeah, I don't believe in kind of over rehearsing things either. I think if you try and perfect it too much, you get a bit complacent and start kind of going through the motions. So I think it's good. There's definitely a happy sort of middle ground. You need to know that you've gone through it a couple of times, but not hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Is that how you were back in the day as well? When you first started as a band, or were you one of those bands that rehearsed all the time?
Yeah, we did rehearse more in the early days. I guess because we'd write in rehearsals as well, or I'd bring songs in for the band to kind of to play around with and help arrange or whatever. So yeah, I think particularly in the very early days before you get a deal, it's something you do for enjoyment and to sort of catch up with your mates and have a few beers afterwards. And it just gets more and more difficult to justify that in a way when you've got families and bills to pay. And don't want to sound too downcast or whatever, but yes, you're kind of more focused on working when you have specific projects and things to work towards.
Oh yeah, I love a deadline. Love a deadline.
Yeah.
I've always said that about Chris.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're performing now, do you feel more relaxed than ever, more confident, more like I know what I'm doing, or do you think you perhaps always had that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the crowd. The crowd is so important for me. It's like when you get up on stage and you get a really good reaction and things are going well, then I really feed off that and enjoy it. But if for whatever reason it's a bit of an off night from the crowd, I always find Sunday nights can be quite tricky, quite difficult.
Yeah.
Quite difficult because everyone's got work the next day and they're just not quite.
They're not drunk enough. Is that what you're saying?
Not drunk enough. Yeah. Or they're not. They won't sort of let go as much as a crowd on a Friday night or even a Thursday night. So those gigs can be quite difficult. But
well, do you know what, James? As a music punter, gig goer, most of my life, that felt the same being stood in that crowd. Sunday night gigs always felt so weird for me.
Yeah.
Going into Cardiff when things were closed, everything else is closed apart from this one place that you're going to for this gig. And I used to think, this is weird, Sunday night gigs. So it was from us. So I'm sorry if I've ever made that.
No, it's understandable. Yeah.
James, we're going to take you back in a time machine to when you were growing up, and just wondering what music was around you. When did you first become aware of just music in general, really?
I remember my mum had a cassette of Rubber Soul in a car.
Yes.
And we used to listen to that. My dad had a big record collection. He was a big Springsteen fan. He used to go to the gigs with my uncle.
Brilliant.
And my brother's a big music fan as well. He's a bit older than me, so he was Stone Roses and New Order. I guess like most people, the first time I became aware of music was row, row, row your boat, and the good ship sailed on the alley alley o.
Couple of classics there, James.
Yeah. but
Couple of classics.
But in terms of like popular music as we know it, yeah, my mum's cassette of Rubber Soul and my dad's Springsteen records.
Yeah.
Did you used to play them when they weren't around? Can you remember the times where you started listening to music off your own back? Because we had a big stereogram when I was a kid, so it was. Do you know what I mean by stereogram? Yeah. Is that the right word? I'm not even
radiogram.
Sure if word. Radio, yeah. So it was really wide, and it was like almost like a cabinet, and you'd open the top in the middle, and it had the deck, the turntable, and I remember just putting records on there, and just holding the edge of it and just dancing. Just dancing, you know, without my parents or without anyone there. And I knew early on this music lark is brilliant. So do you remember playing and listening to music sort of yourself, you know, without your parents?
Yeah, we used to, at Christmas, we used to get a Now cassette or a sort of hits
yes.
cassette, and we'd like put those songs on sometimes. Yeah, I think before I became aware of what's cool and what music was for, I guess before you kind of find your tribe, it's just anything on the radio. It's got a good beat and a catchy lyric. You just Dr. Alban.
Now we're talking,
because you're my life.
You were dodging around it, and there's no, Chris and I always say there's no sort of guilty pleasures on here because there's no guilt. So my first records were Shakin' Stevens. I was obsessed with Shakin' Stevens, Bananarama, and the 1985 Man United FA Cup final song.
Wow. Well, that's what I loved about the and they were probably all in the same hits, or now that's what I call music. They were probably all in the same edition. That's what I loved about Now or Hits 4 or whatever. Just they had all these just really random songs smashed together. And also, it wasn't just the biggest selling songs of that particular time of the year, because I think they were every 6 months, weren't they? But it was, you know, which music promoters had paid them enough money, or you had pushed a single. So you had some really weird ones that probably didn't even chart, you know, things that, you know, got to the top, you know, 75 or whatever. But they would end up on hits 7 or whatever. And I love that.
I always remember Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters, and I'm sure it was then Stephen Tintin Duffy. And I'm thinking, I mean, what is that? Well, I'm going out my age here, but me and my siblings, we were sending each other pictures. We've got on vinyl those first load of Now and Hits. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and that was often our shared present amongst us siblings from my grandparents. And you got all your music for a whole year in two pieces of vinyl there. 4 sides of music. What?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Hits 4 was one which I got when it came out, and you know, it was things like Public Image Limited, you know, when they were absolutely banging out some, you know, real crackers. But that was next to Whitney Houston and Wham and Yeah, I loved it. What was the kind of era of hits and now that's what I call music that you were listening? So what was it? What was it you said? Rosala? Or was it no?
Dr.
Dr.
Alban.
Alban, It's My Life.
It's my
Yeah.
life.
Right. So
It's
that's
like
about
early 90s.
about 91,
Yeah.
92, something like that.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, gents, is inextricably linked now to Tampax.
Yeah.
Hear that
Absolutely.
song?
Yeah.
Hear that song? It's Tampax. You know,
Yeah.
that poor guy had a great tune, and then he sells it to that advert, and that's all any of us in Britain of a certain age.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I automatically thought of the other sanitary product, the body form advert with the
Whoa!
Yeah. But was that not so successful that it got released as a single? Funny.
No
Yeah.
way.
In the same way that, you know, Coke Is It, and, you know, they had that ended up getting released as a single.
Yes.
Coke
Yeah.
Is It. Yeah, I've got a funny feeling Body Form got released as a single.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that.
I prefer their early stuff.
Before they got wings. So when did you sort of first pick up an instrument and start playing and enjoying it, sort of thing?
Around 11, 12, started learning the keyboard. And not long after
how did that happen? Because a keyboard, that's quite you're going to get a keyboard. Was that from your mum or your dad, or your encouraging you?
Yeah, it's going back a few years now. So yeah, the keyboard always felt like something that I was learning, where like I didn't have a kind of natural ability for it. Really, it was I picked it up reasonably easily, but it was when I started watching old Neil Young videos and Oasis was starting to come through, and I decided I wanted to learn the guitar. I just took to it a lot easier and enjoyed it a lot more. And remember my dad won an old like nylon string guitar in a raffle that he just kept on he just kept on a shelf in his study. And one day I just asked if I could take it down, and started trying to learn these Neil Young songs. And then I was away, really, started learning Oasis songs. And
you were like 12 years old?
Yeah.
12 years old, and you're wanting to learn Neil Young songs?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Put me in my place. I think I was still listening to Michael Jackson at the age of 12.
I'm sure my mum and dad will listen to the podcast and be like, what are you on about? You were 15 or whatever. I was
24.
Still at school. Yeah.
And so did guitar come quite easily then?
Yeah. I was pretty much self-taught on guitar, whereas, like I say, I'd go to keyboard lessons for the piano, and just picked up what people taught me. Whereas with the guitar, I'd sit there with the tablature stuff and try and work it out for myself. I went for one guitar lessons. My dad's head teacher and the music teacher at his school was like, I'll teach him guitar. And I went round to his house and he tried to teach me Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits.
Brilliant.
Bearing in mind that it's a great tune, but I'd only kind of learnt G, C and E minor, which was most of the Oasis catalogue at the time.
Yeah.
Let's kick you off with Mark Knopfler.
Yeah. He's like, can you learn this riff? Like, I might need a bit of practice, but it's just like, surely this isn't guitar day one. Sultans of Swing.
Let's get the guitar solo out of the way first, and then we'll work on the chords. And
is this really lesson one? I think we've skipped 4 years.
Yeah. I remember that he plugged the guitar into his stereo as well, which was a weird move I've never seen anyone do that since. Like he didn't have an amp. He didn't have an amp or anything. It was into like the aux on this stereo.
So that's what the aux is for. Right.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if that's is that genius? I mean, there's an aux plug there.
I think it might be. I mean, it might
That
absolutely.
might be quite clever.
It might screw your stereo up. I thought.
I don't
Maybe.
know.
I don't know.
Well,
You're pretty limited. You're pretty limited on what sounds you can make with it as well. There's no reverb on your average stereo. Really.
Keeps it real though.
I've always complained about that.
Yeah.
There's not enough reverb on my
Where's
stereo.
the distortion?
Yeah. Where are the pedals on this?
Yeah.
And he's there going, hang on, this is lesson 1.
Yeah.
Pedals come in lesson 2, James.
Yeah. Exactly.
So when did you sort of become aware of live music and live gigs and thinking, I want to start going and seeing some live music? Was it part of your upbringing? So were you sort of playing in school concerts or going, you mentioned that your dad was a head teacher, so were you going to school concerts and things like that?
Yeah, I was always part of the choirs at school.
Yes, me too.
And I'm not religious in any way, but my mum and dad used to drag me to church, and the one thing that I enjoyed was singing. So that was just always that was my first introduction to sort of live performance.
And then did your folks take you to, because you were saying before that your dad was a big Springsteen fan, were you taken to any gigs by your folks, before you had any say in it? Were you taken to anything by them?
Not that I remember. No. Apart from my uncle played in a ceilidh band, so we'd go and watch him play the accordion when we were up in Scotland.
Get in. You cannot beat a good ceilidh band.
Yeah.
You sure about that?
Yeah. I'm absolutely. I had a ceilidh band at my wedding. I was thinking about them the other day, and honestly, hands down, I think they're one of the best live bands I've ever seen. They were incredible. I'll give them a shout out.
How many episodes are we in now, and you've just introduced this?
Yeah,
Come on.
ceilidh band called Kilter. Most of them were fellow bandmates from another band that I used to play in, but they were
good name.
Kilter. Yeah, so they're possibly the best ceilidh band in Scotland at the moment.
Other ceilidh bands are available.
In Scotland, they are.
Yeah, there are many. Where did you grow up, James?
In Chorley, in Lancashire.
Oh, you Chorley boy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Junction 8.
Yeah.
So, were your parents going off to concerts?
The only things I remember was my dad going to Springsteen gigs. He went down to Wembley Stadium, I think, on the Born in the USA tour with my uncle.
Oh, wow.
And they would, I think they would go to the odd concert as well at Blackburn King George's Hall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would have gigs on.
And that's still a regular venue, is it?
Yeah.
Not? Blackburn St George's Hall, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my older brother would go to a lot of gigs as well.
What gigs was he going to that you were aware of? Can you remember?
I think Stone Roses and New Order, Manchester gigs, basically. Happy Mondays. He went to the Hacienda, and when he was up in Newcastle, he was at uni in Newcastle, so he'd go to gigs there as well. And the first gigs I went to were with him.
Well, we were going to get onto that, so here we go. Here's the meat.
Here we are.
What do you remember your first gig as? What would you class as your first gig?
The Boo Radleys at Warrington Park Hall.
Fantastic. What year was that?
95.
Okay, so it was
it was on the
Wake Up Boo.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny on the Boo Radleys, because I think back then I had a bit of a love-hate, because we had Wake Up Boo shoved down our throats so much that I just thought, oh, what is this song? But actually, when you listen to that song, it is incredibly written. It is. It's borderline genius. It might well be. The arrangements on it and everything. They're actually amazing, and they wrote so many great songs. The Boo Radleys, really.
The Giant Steps album is really good as well.
Oh,
exactly.
That was the one that got me onto them. Lazarus and
Lazarus, that's the one.
Wishing I Was Skinny, and I Hang Suspended. It's just such a good album.
It's amazing.
Lazarus is the one with the big brass line in it.
Yeah, but then it drops down to the most delicate, heartbreaking, almost silence, and then boom, and it's a belter.
Yes,
but then I also liked Come On Kids.
Yeah,
and I was like, wowzers. This is great. So that's good. So that's a hell of a first gig.
From the Bench at Belvedere. Is that on Come On Kids? That's a lovely song. Yeah.
Well, we talked about it in a couple of episodes ago, 2 or 3 episodes ago. So I photographed Boo Radley's. They played Night and Day in Manchester, and obviously Martin wasn't with them, but they sounded fantastic. They're really, really good. And who knows? You never know. Maybe the original lineup will surface again. It's
worth saying, check out Martin's new single as well.
Yeah.
So the Boo Radleys have got new music. Have a listen, and then Martin has also, he's just released a new single, and I really like his solo stuff. He's very creative. Great. So Boo Radleys. Now, let's see sort of what levels we're on here, James. So both Chris and I, ultimate geeks, so we have collected ticket stubs and merch and all kinds of shit over the years. Did you keep that ticket stub? Do you still have your Boo Radley's ticket stub?
Yeah. I don't have it in my possession, but it's definitely with my mum and dad, with all the stuff they cleared out of my room when I moved out. Yeah.
Welcome to the club, James Walsh.
The shoebox club. We call
shoebox,
yeah.
See, it's not just us, Chris. It's not just us.
No, well, that's good. But I can recommend when Lockdown 5 kicks in, if you can get some time in between writing new songs, get your tickets from your mum and dad. Just get them and put them in a spreadsheet like I did over the first lockdown. Excel spreadsheet, and one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my entire life.
I'm so sorry, James. I'm so sorry. If you want to end now, I'll totally understand. But if you do want to see his Excel spreadsheet, he can and will send it to you. Excellent. So 95 then.
Yeah.
So I don't want to jump ahead here, but for me, 95 was a hell of a year for gigs. Was Boo Radley's. What do you remember about that gig? In fact, just talking before I jump onto your next gigs, do you remember much of that gig? Sorry, where was it, James?
At Parr Hall in Warrington.
Parr Hall, Warrington. Okay. So do you remember much of that gig?
I remember it was really good. I wish I had a sort of more, what's the word? A more poetic and poetic sort of account. I remember when I walked through the doors and the spine tingling. But I do remember
happened, does it?
Yeah, I do remember being excited to be at a gig and to go to school the next day and say I was at this gig, and and I'm ashamed to say as well, I remember waiting for them to play Wake Up Boo, because that was the one that everyone knew. So
no need to be ashamed. Just going to text Martin now. No, because it's funny, isn't it? Because we have different experiences, and it doesn't have to be a poetic answer, because Chris and I both were sort of going to live music from a young age, but mainly classical concerts and traditional concerts, and my first 2 sort of popular concerts, I mean, the first one was Michael Jackson at the Stadium. So I could give you a poetic answer, because it was, it was stupid. It was stupid.
50,000 people in the National Stadium in Cardiff, and him coming in on a jetpack obviously wasn't him, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But then my next one was the Shaman in Newport Leisure Centre. And I just remember most of the crowd gurning their faces off and just smiling at me, encouraging me, because I was, younger, and just thinking, what is going on? And just lots of dry ice. That's what I remember. That's what I remember of the Shaman. So it doesn't have to be poetic, but on both occasions for me, I knew this is something I love. Obviously, you and I go different ways. You end up fronting a band, and I just have spent a life of going to live music. And for me, live music, I'll go and watch anyone. I sat outside the Millennium Stadium, or National Stadium as it was back then, when Bon Jovi played. I didn't like Bon Jovi, but I would just sit outside and just listen to live music, So was it like that for you, or was it a gradual, yeah, I quite like this? Or did you think, oh man, this is brilliant, I want to go to more live gigs?
Yeah, I got the bug then. I just remembered another little thing of going to that Boo Radley's gig was I got a big poster, and I had to, it's when you first start going to gigs, you have to get all the merch and all the shit they're selling. So I've still got that big kind of black and white printed out poster.
No way.
Was it from inside the venue, or was it from the pavement outside?
I don't remember, to be honest. I think it must have been in the venue, because it, like I say, it was sort of black and white, like someone had just printed it out.
You got it from the pavement outside. Come on.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
That was really a thing in the 90s. I was generally at either dance stuff or, indie stuff, but mostly indie stuff. And that was the thing, wasn't it? If you were lucky enough, you'd have a bit of extra money for a t-shirt, poster, mugs. I've still got Bell and Sebastian mugs, Manic Street Preacher mugs.
I'd have to. I'm sorry, posters. I have to question that, going to a gig and coming back with a mug. Really?
Yeah, what an idiot! Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. It's totally stupid.
So the floodgates opened then, and you just went to gig after gig after gig. And was that all in? Was that all in kind of Warrington area, or was it into Manchester?
I went to just around the northwest, really. I just fully embraced the Britpop era. I went to see one of these places where I've never had cause to go since, but it'll always hold kind of fond memories for me, because I went to Hanley Civic Hall, or whatever it was called, to see Suede used to do fan club gigs.
All right.
Wow.
So I went to see that. That was the first gig where I kind of got on a sort of guest list or whatever, because my brother was an accountant, and the firm that he was working for at the time looked after Suede's accounts. So
rock and roll.
He managed to get me on the list for this Suede fan club gig, and I got a t-shirt signed afterwards, and it was just, I remember taking my mate from school, and I think we'd just finished school, so we finished school on the guest list for this gig, and that was just incredible, really.
Yeah.
When would that have been? What year was that?
It was coming up, so it must have been 96. Yeah.
Is that right? Is it 96 coming up?
95, 96.
It was 95, because I've just photographed the anniversary tour, and it was postponed
96,
for a year.
Yeah.
So it would be 95.
This is probably kind of leading on to another kind of section of the interview, but around the same period, I saw Pulp at a festival called Heineken Music Festival.
Oh yeah.
And it was a free festival, but you got tickets by collecting ring pulls or bottle tops or something. I wasn't old enough to drink at the time, so I got my dad to
Your daddy was an alcoholic.
My dad was.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good night. See you later.
I remember sort of pleading with my dad to go in these off licenses because you had to find a specific one that was doing these promotional ring pulls or bottle tops or whatever. And that it's weird because like now I'm a parent myself. I just think what a spoiled brat kind of put in my. Oh please, Dad, please, can we go in another one? Oh no, they don't have them in there. Can we try another one? You're like, oh God.
I long for the day that my son goes, Dad, can we go to another off license? We'll buy you some more beer.
Yeah.
Okay, son.
Yeah.
Dad, you didn't buy any of the Heineken. You've come out with 24 cans again.
Yeah.
Craft brew.
Oh yeah, they didn't have any Heineken, but they did have this lovely pale ale.
Pale ale.
Yeah.
And a bottle of Prosecco. Lovely.
Yeah.
It's for your mum. It's for your mum. Don't tell anyone. So you saw Pulp. Did you actually? So your dad, I'm assuming then you found a place with promotional ring pulls.
Yeah.
And you saw Pulp. And
Yeah,
would that have been different class?
Yeah. Just prior to that album coming out.
Oh, so who else was on that bill? I'm interested in the bill now.
The Blue Tones.
Yeah.
Menswear.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I think that's all I remember.
Is it
But
but
thinking
kind of
about
peak
it,
Britpop?
Yeah. Thinking about it, I saw loads of people like went to Sefton Park in Liverpool to see Dodgy played in a big top.
Oh yeah, yeah. Did they not do a tour of Big Tops? Am I imagining that?
Radiohead did that. I don't know if Dodgy did, but
Yeah, I think it was it 3-piece suite
Yeah.
tour? That'll be
and
it.
they did Dodgy do the whole tour with a big top?
Big Top, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they did it before Radiohead.
Yeah, I think so.
Here's me thinking Radiohead were all the cool.
No, Dodgy at that point. Well, I mean they're great now, but in '95, round about then, they were on fire. They were so good live, and finishing with, I think they finished with Grassman. That was their kind of Sprost and Green kind of finishing with Grassman. Oh,
so you saw quite a few, and it sounds like you may have seen similar tours to Chris and I. Which gigs stand out from back then?
It's a little bit later, but the Verve at Hay Hall was the real iconic gig for me. The one that sort of
that was the big one, wasn't it? They did as
the homecoming Wigan gig. I saw Oasis at Main Road as well. That was pretty special.
I can imagine.
Oh yes, was that the first time they played Main Road?
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking about
Wow.
venues where you would never have any reason to go to, and you probably haven't been since. Oasis, I've got two of them because I went to see Oasis at Irvine Beach in '95, and then at Whitley Bay, I think also in '95. Neither
Bay?
which
the ice rink.
Yeah, it was freezing. My feet. It was November. My feet were because obviously they just put wood over the ice.
Yeah,
freezing. But never been to Irvine or Whitley Bay since.
Or an
it's
ice
the
rink.
only time I've ever, or an ice rink, yeah. But yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, venues where you would never go to for any other reason than to go to a gig, and that's it.
So when did Starsailor come about? So you are going to gigs. It's 95. How old were you in 95, if you don't mind me asking?
15.
15. Okay.
Yeah.
So when, or maybe not Starsailor, when did you start thinking, right, I want to be in a band?
We sort of had little bands when I was still at high school, because you'd have as part of your music GCSE, you'd have like an ensemble project. So those of us who were into Oasis, and I remember the first song I learned to play in a band. In fact, I wasn't even playing at that point in this particular band. I was just singing. Was Babylon Zoo, Spaceman.
Spaceman. Wow.
Again, that was an advert, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it sort of got released. What was his name? Jazz
I can't
Man.
remember. That was it. Yeah.
Is that right? Jazz Man.
Yeah. And we
Yes.
we learned Oasis Supersonic as well.
Hang on, you played Spaceman.
I was singing it.
Wow. I mean, I suppose with that song, it's got a good bit in it, and that was the bit that was in the advert. But
it's got like a hip hop beat, hasn't it? Boom, boom, dung, 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 dung. It's an electronica song, and then all of a sudden, it breaks out into some weird guitar. Bum 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 bow bow bow. Which bit were you doing, James?
I think we did the kind of the rock bit.
That is so funny. You heard it here first, or maybe not. But James Walsh did Spaceman Babylon Zoo. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Having caught the bug for music from Babylon Zoo, I decided that I wanted to do music at college, and my GCSEs weren't good enough to do A-level music, so I ended up at Wigan and Leigh College doing a BTEC in music, and that's where I met the rest of the band.
Well, serendipity, innit?
Yeah.
Were they big?
You bonded over Babylon Zoo.
We bonded over Babylon Zoo and not being good enough for A-levels. So
get in. Love it.
Not long after I started college, I met the bass player and drummer from Starsailor, Ben and Stel, and we didn't become Starsailor for a couple of years, but we were playing together and playing pubs around Wigan and Warrington.
What were you called?
Yeah, come on, tell the truth.
We were called Morph at one point.
Morph as in the plasticine
guy. Slide with a Y.
Slide with a Y. Brilliant. Yes.
Slide.
Waterface was one. Yeah.
Hang on. Are all these real, James?
Yeah.
How many bloody names? How many names? What? And you were the same trio, same lineup?
Yeah, we just kept changing the name of the
Brilliant. Any more? This is all good stuff.
we changed the guitarist and changed the name. I can't think of any others.
Well, if you think of any more, just let me know, and we'll pop it in, because I'd love this. I mean, one of my favorite moments in the Gig Stories podcast history was Rick Witter talking about talking about Brockley Haven, their original name, Brockley Haven.
Brockley Haven. That's takes some bit. I mean, even Slide with the Y sounds all right next to Brockley Haven.
But only just.
Yeah.
That is who came up with Starsailor then?
I can't say definitively because I might have dreamt it, but I've got a distinct image of being at home at my mum and dad's house in Chorley, and we were due to go down to London to do a gig because we'd already sent a demo off with Alcoholic and Lullaby on it when we were still called Waterface. We got a call from the Social in London to do a gig down there, and I think it was Martin Kelly was like, we want you to come and support this band at the Social, but you can't. Did he
tell you to change your name?
He didn't say that. He just said a lot of people had said that Waterface is a shit name. You've got to change your name. And he'd phoned up and said, what are we going to put on the poster? We need what are you called? Like, because you've told us that you're changing your name. And I'd been sent a vinyl album, Tim Buckley's Starsailor.
You got it from Tim Buckley.
And I just glanced over at it and was like, yeah, were called Starsailor.
Good show.
That
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. My daughter is Grace, and I tell everyone she's named after Jeff Buckley's Grace.
Mm.
And then my wife tells everyone that actually it's not. She's named after Sandra Bullock character from a film.
It can be named after both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I tell people, because I was not aware of the Sandra Bullock connection.
Yeah.
It's congeniality. That was it.
Yeah.
So which band were you supporting at that point then?
There's a band called Birdie who was signed to Heavenly at the time, I think.
That rings a bell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the young Birdie with the really nice voice who's kind of released albums recently. This was
no, back in the day. So what do you remember of early support gigs? Were they a big part of Starsailor, becoming what they became, support gigs?
Yeah, I remember the first tour we did was with Doves. In fact, the first big support we did was the Beautiful South at Sheffield Arena, and I remember they gave us a VHS tape because there were big screens either side, and they taped our performance on VHS, the venue or SJM or whoever, and they gave us the VHS tape. We were living together as a band in Wigan at the time. We didn't have a video player, so we stopped at the All Night Asda. The All Night Asdas were a big novelty at that time as well. But actually bought a video player so we could watch this gig. So that was pretty amazing. But yeah, like I said,
and the Beautiful South was your first support slot.
Yeah, as far as I remember, we definitely did multiple band gigs when we were starting out, but it wasn't for anyone of any great note.
So it was more like a showcase kind of thing.
Yeah, a battle of the bands or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sure the band that's on last would say that everyone else was supporting them, but I don't think it's. Yeah. But yeah, Doves was the first tour, like multiple date thing that we did. And we went to Ireland to support them, which was just amazing. Like they're experiences that you sort of continue to enjoy and appreciate, but there's nothing like that first time of getting PDs and stuff. It's like you're giving me money to go and get my dinner, and I'm getting paid to get up on stage and sing these songs. It's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, I mean there are questions. There's a question that I like to ask just around support gigs because I'm fascinated by them. Because often bands will get smashed together with another band to support, just because they're maybe on the same record label or whatever. But then because of that, they tend to be really incongruous. They don't kind of go together. Do you remember any gigs where you were booked to support somebody and you thought, why are we on the same bill as them?
We did an American tour with Nickelback. That was a weird one.
Shut up.
Yeah.
That is brilliant.
So how did that come about then? Was that the same record company or was that?
It was an MTV tour. And we played the MTV2 stage, which was situated in the car park. Actually, they set up a sort of temporary stage in the car park of these gigs. So when we played in the sort of main cities where people were starting to get knowledge of Starsailor, we'd have a decent crowd and they'd be really good gigs. But when we played in the kind of backwater towns, there would be nobody watching us on this stage. And we could see like a queue of people waiting for the arena doors to open for Nickelback, just completely ignoring us. So it was quite
gosh.
It was quite a dent to the ego going from doing these really good sort of sold out gigs in the UK and things going incredibly well to the odd day in America, like playing to a disinterested queue.
Yeah.
Going in
Yeah.
to see Nickelback at the bottom of the mosh
Yeah,
pit.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't stand. So did when you're supporting someone like Doves,
Hmm.
are you watching them night after night?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
were you?
definitely. We've supported the Charlatans a few times as well, and we'd always enjoy hanging out with them and watching them. But yeah, it was again like at those first few months or year, or that first year, whatever, when you first get to do it, and you've only sort of written a handful of songs, and suddenly you're supporting Doves and the Charlatans. It's a pretty magical feeling.
Yeah.
And you do sort of quite quickly kind of, I guess, being young and having the attention and stuff thrust upon you, you do quickly sort of go from that feeling of being in awe of these people and just disbelieving that you're in this position to suddenly thinking now we'd never be so arrogant to say we're better than these bands, but we'd be much more kind of, yeah, we deserve to be here, and these are our contemporaries now. They're not on this pedestal anymore.
Yeah.
I
photographed you at Castlefield Bowl when you were supporting James.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I'm such a massive James fan, and I just had kind of tunnel vision for James, and I hadn't noticed who was supporting until I got there, and then Blossoms, who I hadn't. Was it Blossoms who were on that?
Yeah.
So Blossoms were there, and they were really early on in their career and in the evening, and so that was a bit. But then you came on. I was like, this is a treat. I hadn't realized that you were supporting. This is a treat. Excellent. And it was knockout. It was such a good gig. What do you remember of that? Because it was a real belter. I remember it just the bill just felt really smart. It felt really good. The crowd felt really warm. And what do you remember?
Yeah, I remember it being a lovely gig and a great. We've supported James a few times, and it's always been really good. I think they seem to attract the kind of fan that is a music fan and appreciates all kinds of bands and all kinds of music, rather than some bands are a little bit more tribalistic.
Well, yeah, and I think part of that is because they never play the same set from night to night, and I think fans who go and see them live, they know that's built into them. They know that they're going to get James, and they're going to get some things from the mid '80s, and they're going to get some stuff that came out in the late '90s, but they don't know what it's going to be, and they're okay with that. And I think that kind of feeds out into whoever's playing support or whoever's playing on the bill with them as well. There's a tolerance. I think Tim Booth does that anyway, and the rest, he kind of breeds that kind of tolerance with everyone, especially with the trust that he shows when he goes into the crowd and almost offers himself to the crowd. I think. No, it was a great gig. I loved it.
Have you ever supported a band where the fans have just been, well, what's going on here? Who are you? And just did not tolerate you? Because there's some great ones. I mean, Shed 7 talking about supporting Aerosmith, and there are something like. Have you ever sort of been a support, or maybe on a festival where you just knew you were beneath the headliner, perhaps, and those fans were not there for you? Have you sort of had that?
There was a small number of Manic Street Preachers fans who did not want us to be there.
Alex.
We were playing at Glasgow Barrowlands, and it was the rest of the crowd was great, and we were totally honoured, obviously, to be supporting Manic Street Preachers, another amazing band. They're just these lads in the front row who were giving us the V signs and just giving us such a hard time.
I don't know if it's Alex who should be apologizing here as a Manic's diehard fan, or me as an honorary Glaswegian.
Yeah. Mr. Barrowlands. Hugh.
Yeah.
I mean, because they were definitely Scottish, those boys.
I just remember saying like something really cocky, like James Dean Bradfield has asked us to be here. So if you've got a problem with it, take it up with him.
Good.
Nice one.
Chris referred to me sort of having a slight penchant for the Manics. How were they to be on tour with? Because I'm imagining boring, because they just want to sit and watch Sky Sports or keep themselves because they're not actually that rock and roll at the moment. When was this support tour? What year would this have been?
I've got a lot of time for the Manics because this was like quite early on for us. So 2001, 2002. And yeah, they were all lovely. You're trying to remember which tour it was.
Was it Lifeblood?
I think I can't honestly remember the sort of name of the tour or anything. But they were really lovely, and Nicky Wire particularly, because he has a reputation of being a bit more out there or more difficult to. I guess he's eccentric, I suppose, is the idea that is put across. But he couldn't have been. James Dean Bradfield and Sean as well, but Nicky Wire couldn't have been nicer and more welcoming, and he invited us into their dressing room. And some years later, when the band wasn't the sort of height of our fame or popularity or whatever, and my kind of solo thing is a lot more low key, and sort of play small gigs and stuff. And I got asked to support them again at this secret gig at King Tut's in Glasgow. And
brilliant.
I don't want to kind of get too emotional or too self-depreciating or whatever, but it came at a time where I was thinking, I was a bit in the sort of doldrums and thinking, the glory days of the band are behind us and struggling a bit, and just that it came at the right moment to be like, shit, no, this band has asked me to do this, and it was a nice lift to grab my guitar and head up to Glasgow and do this gig.
A cracking wee venue as well, King Tut's.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. There's one thing before we get back onto live music again. I just wanted to ask you quickly, and you don't have to answer it. It's absolutely fine, but it's just about. It can't not ask you about working briefly with Phil Spector, and I know it looks like it didn't turn out as planned. But what do you remember about the kind of relationship, the working with Spector? Was it on the second album?
Yeah. It's obviously difficult to. I guess you have to transport yourself back to that time, because it's difficult to say anything positive about someone who's. We all know what kind of happened.
No, absolutely.
Afterwards.
I mean, I was more interested in the style of his production.
Yeah, like I say, if we kind of imagine how people felt before all that came out, then the first few days when we recorded Silence is Easy were amazing, and he sort of implemented his wall of sound and opened up the echo chambers in the studio. I was a big fan of. I'm still a big fan of Dion. So people, obviously John Lennon. He worked on Imagine and all these incredible, worked with the Beatles as well. But it was Dion that Born to Be With You album, that was why I was excited to work with Phil Spector. But then it sort of went downhill after that, really. It just, I was speaking about it the other day, about how he was very controlling, not so much with us, but he didn't want the label to be involved with the process or to hear any kind of works in progress, which they didn't take too kindly to, because they were paying for the record, and they're like, Phil Spector was like, you'll hear it when it's finished, kind of thing. So that created a tension between those two parties, and they were sort of caught in the middle.
I was going to say, that's you don't want to be caught in there.
He insisted on working odd hours as well. He came over from LA and kept LA time, so we were starting late and finishing in the early hours of the morning. And I just had my daughter at the time, so I was going home to a baby as well. It was quite a tense time. Yeah.
Did you genuinely feel that he brought something new to your sound?
Yeah, I think the sound of Silence is Easy, particularly that track, is still holds up. But there isn't anything that he did that we've sort of carried forward. What he does is so unique, or was so unique, so it's impossible to kind of take any sort of advice or any aspects of his sound and carry it forward.
That's him,
Well, thanks for that, because I think I would have kicked myself if I'd not asked you. Alex, I'm thinking we should wire into the quick fire round just now.
Oh, yes. So your favorite live musician or vocalist, so you can choose. Who is your favorite to see live?
Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Oh, so you are a big Bruce fan then?
Yeah. Energy. His voice never seems to crack or waver through a sort of 3.5 hour set. Yeah.
It's bonkers, isn't it? He literally just plays 3.5 hours all the time. And like, wasn't it the last time he played Manchester? Well, I think he was doing it throughout the tour. He's taking requests. And this was at the Etihad or whatever. He's taking requests. And didn't someone on that last tour ask him to do Santa Claus? What's his Christmas one? Yeah, he just did it. It was the middle of summer. And he was like, yeah, all right then. That takes some doing.
I think I mentioned on a previous podcast, but I managed to get a free ticket to go and see him at the arena, and it was his Seeger Sessions tour, and I didn't really have an opinion on him, good or bad. I liked some tunes. I liked Thunder Road, and I liked Streets of Philadelphia as well. I had a bit of a soft spot for that. I thought it was a beautiful.
That's a great song.
It's gorgeous.
Underrated, that song.
Really gorgeous. But I went to this gig and thought, okay, well, I've got a free ticket. I'm an idiot if I don't go. I went. He was on for about 3 hours, and I didn't want it to finish. I didn't want it to end. And you can't, even your favorite band, you'd kind of go, yeah, I'm probably done now. But with him, it was just non-stop, and it was none of the hits. It was all Seeger Session stuff. It was Froggy Went a Courtin' and We Will Overcome and all these protest songs. Oh, did you see that?
I like that. I'm just going to throw this in.
Go on.
Even with my most favorite bands, there's a limit to how long I'd want to listen to them. But have you, so you've just mentioned that, Bruce, a Springsteen one. James, I'm going to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Who have you seen that you genuinely thought I could listen to them all night? Mine was Nick Cave at the Liverpool Philharmonic Hall, and it would have been 98, 99. And I have still to this day never witnessed anything like it. And it was just him and a piano, and then he would bring maybe a violinist on, or someone just with a snare drum on and off. And I could have sat there for 5 hours. Who could you sit and listen to all night?
Again, Bruce Springsteen, but I remember seeing Feist play at Shepherd's Bush Empire. And she played for an hour and a half, and that felt like 5 minutes because it was so enjoyable and engaging. I could think of. You always think of loads of songs where you think, oh, she didn't play that or she didn't do that. And
Yes.
yeah. So I think she's a good performer as well.
And you remember those evenings.
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of bands and some great performances, but there's just a few standout like that you just go, yeah, I'll never forget that Nick Cave. I'll never forget that Feist at Shepherd's Bush Empire. I love those evenings.
Okay, question number 2 in the quickfire round. Do you have a favourite venue?
Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never been. So what's special about Shepherd's Bush Empire?
I think it's just the perfect size. It's like big enough to create a big kind of noise and atmosphere, but small enough to still feel like you're part of something quite intimate. We've played it a lot of times, so I know the layout of it, which is quite important as well, like how to get to the bar and the backstage bar or whatever.
The shortcuts are important.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Just every gig we've played there and every gig I've seen there has been great. I like a venue with seats as well, or a venue where you can get stuck in if you feel like going in the mosh pit.
Yeah,
but
I like an option. I like to have the option.
If you want to if you want to sit down or hang back, you can do that as well.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm totally with you, especially at our age. I mean, you're a bit younger than me and Alex, but yeah, with our knees, yeah, I'm not standing on an ice rink again.
With our knees. What's your best ever moment at a gig?
A gig that I was playing or a gig that I was watching?
Up to you.
Yeah.
Up to you.
I remember watching the Verve at Hay Hall and thinking this is what I want to do. This is
you had a lightning bolt moment.
Yeah.
Was it during a specific song, or am I being too specific there? Or was it just that whole gig you were just
the whole gig really?
I need to be up there.
Yeah. And on a slightly sort of sadder note, another kind of iconic gig that I was at more recently was the John Brooks tribute night at the Albert Hall. Seeing Liam and the Charlatans do My Sweet Lord and hearing them kind of blast through the hits as well. That was a really highly charged sort of emotional occasion.
Were you there as a punter?
Yeah.
You were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course there's a nice link between those, in as much as Pete is now drumming for the Charlatans.
Last question in the quickfire round. Worst gig, and again this can be either as a punter or as a performer. Worst gig.
The worst gig I've ever done was a solo gig, and I was touring in Australia, and I got this random booking in a mining town called Mackay, and it was a long drive to get there, but it was a good sort of payer. So like, well, we might as well do it. And the crowd didn't know any. Not only did they not know any Starsailor songs, I'd kind of got used to doing the odd gig where it's not my crowd. So like, okay, I'll throw in a few covers. I was playing Elvis, the Beatles, Bob Marley, and just nothing, just no reaction.
Oh God!
Were they there for someone else, or were you the only person playing that night?
It turned out it wasn't really a gig. I was the turn. I was the entertainment, but it paid quite well. So I think there must have been a lot of money in this mining town. So,
were they just stood in front of you, just staring?
Yeah, I should have known it was going to be a bad gig when I walked through the door and the barmaid was in her underwear. And I turned round to this like leery old bloke who was sat at the bar, and I was like, "Why is the barmaid in her underwear?" And he just said, "Skimpy Tuesdays, mate." That was the explanation.
Skimpy Tuesdays.
Yeah. And obviously, the anti-misogynist. What would be the word for someone who's sort of pro women's rights? Part of me was like, I've got to walk out of here now.
Yes.
But I needed the money. Yeah, so and I was younger, forgive me. But yeah, it was an awful gig. Yeah.
Hi, James. It's a Skimpy Tuesday, so you're going to have to play in your boxes, mate. Get your boxes. That is brilliant. That
and maybe, to be fair, mate, maybe this girl was happy with Skimpy Tuesdays. Who knows? So yeah,
she may well have been. And if she was happy with Skimpy Tuesdays, then that's fair enough.
Yeah, that was the brilliant gig.
Before we take you to the last couple of questions, I just want to. Now, this is a tough one to whiz through. I don't want to push you because I know you may need time to have a think about it. But it's Dream Festival time, okay?
Yeah.
And so you are curating your own festival, and it's your Dream Festival lineup. So whoever you want, and you need to think of who's going to open. So who's going to ease us in? Or you may not want to ease them in. You just may start with a bang. And then you've got
how many acts do you normally?
So you've got your opener. You've got your afternoon slot.
Yeah.
Then you've got your penultimate, who are the real warm-up.
Yeah.
And then you've got your headliner. So you've got your 4 acts there. Now, listeners, you may have heard this question being turned into an actual podcast by one of our favorite DJs. But
you heard it here first.
But you will know we've been around for over a year. But Sean Keaveney, if you'd like to come on to our podcast, please do. So you've got 4 acts. So James Walsh's festival. Who's opening?
Phoebe Bridgers.
I mean, we could have been here all day, and I would never have guessed that.
Yeah.
Phoebe Bridgers, brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Really good.
What is it about Phoebe that you love or that you enjoy?
I like her sort of deadpan, downbeat nature, and I love her songs. Her melodies are amazing, and it's just reassuringly gentle and accessible I guess that accessible can be used in a sort of negative way, but for me it's just, I mean that in a real positive way. Her music's just warm and confident and great.
Kind of welcoming. Well, you've eased us into the festival really nicely. I've just gone and got a burger. I'm going to sit down, got my pint, going to sit down, sun's blazing. Who's on next?
Badly Drawn Boy.
Yes.
Mr. Goff. Love it.
Yeah.
Damon. That is it. So have you been a long time fan of Damon?
Yeah. I saw him a couple of years ago on a festival. We were both on the bill. And it's just really, really great.
Was that when he was
engaging?
Was it just him?
Yeah.
Was it just he playing on his own? That set is so good, isn't it? I love it when he plays with the band, but that set when he's on his own, it's just fantastic.
I've never seen him with a band. I've seen him about 5 or 6 times, and every single time he's been just him. Really? So I'm looking forward to seeing him with a band.
He's perfect. He's perfect for the afternoon as well, like laid back.
Like it. Like that. Good choice. Good choice. You got your penultimate now, the real warm-up to the headliner. Who is coming on and entertaining us?
There's going to be loads of bands that I think, no, I should have said them or I should have said them.
Yes.
But I'm going to go with Sam Fender.
All right, you're preaching to the choir here. You're preaching to the choir.
Yes. The choir being me.
Yeah, the choir being Alex.
I saw him. Yeah, I think I saw him.
I bit my tongue earlier. My tongue earlier when you were mentioning Bruce Springsteen on both times. Because I wanted to say, well, I've only really started listening to Springsteen properly since Sam Fender, which I can understand the irony.
Yeah.
And so my daughter and I are obsessed with Sam Fender. And we've seen him a few times.
He's amazing live as well.
When have you seen him?
I think I watched him because I follow you on Twitter and I saw that you went to the Manchester gig. I think we went the night after because you did, or the night before, whichever one it was.
Oh, you were on the first night,
at 2 nights at Victoria Warehouse, which was brilliant. Yeah, I think. And
he
it's
was
great.
amazing, wasn't he?
Yeah, you can't beat. Like I say, there's loads of bands who I'd love to see, but you can't beat a band or an artist who's just reaching their peak or entering their kind of glory. Hopefully, he carries on for a long time, but this feels like his glory period or whatever.
Yes.
And seeing an artist embrace that and do their first sort of big gigs and big festival appearances, I think it would be pretty magical to see.
And he is unashamedly ripping off, Bruce Springsteen, and he says, and in his the gig you'd have seen, he does his Dancing in the Dark cover, doesn't he? And he's just, I love him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show you on Friday night. My daughter and I were in the Northeast, and we went to the Low Lights pub where he has his Brit Award as a pump on the bar.
Amazing.
But anyway, that's enough of my sad fanboying at the age of 44. We want to know.
Headliner.
Yes, come on. Who's headlining?
I've actually been. It's been changing in my head as I've been been talking to you.
That's what I like.
The kind of, I guess, the sentimental answer, because they're such a great band, and
this is exciting.
The automatic answer. They unfortunately they've just been pipped to the post. But I was going to say the Charlatans,
right?
Okay.
But they've been pipped to the post, and this is like painfully obvious, I'm afraid. But it would have to be Paul McCartney.
I've got a B here. I had B out of camera for Beatles. I'm going to say Beatles. I was the only. Yeah. And he's gone for. Are you going for Paul McCartney or are you going for the Beatles?
You can't. No, Alex. You can't go for the Beatles. You can't have the Beatles.
What? Why? Because do you know what? No one ever says it because it's a cliche.
Yeah.
No one ever says the Beatles because, oh no, you couldn't say the Beatles.
I think.
Bloody right.
All right, go on then, Beatles.
I'm going to stick.
Stick with Paul.
I'm going to stick with Paul McCartney because there are a lot of his solo songs and wing stuff that I really like as well. Obviously,
frog chorus.
Yeah.
Well,
Moleskine Tire, Pipes of Peace.
Pipes of Peace, I think, is an absolute classic because it's got 3 melodies that could just be taken out and made into beautiful classic pop songs, but it's got 3 smacked into one tune. It's just incredible.
I like Backseat of My Car and Monkberry Moon Delight, but I remember seeing Paul McCartney in America when we were on tour there, and he played Blackbird and he played Yesterday on a guitar on his own, and it was spine tingling because it's like, this is the closest we'll get to seeing the Beatles because that's how these songs were written and performed. So yeah, it's just and it's almost like seeing in the best possible way, sort of seeing a piece of history, a kind of museum thing, weird sort of live museum things. It's without getting too overblown about it. It's like, this is our Bach, our Mozart, our kind of. The Beatles are just for me, they're in a completely different league to absolutely anyone else, really. Yeah. Like the songwriting ability, like obviously John Lennon and George Harrison as well. Ringo, Octopus's Garden.
Exactly. Can I ask if, because this would definitely be something the listeners will be talking about, are you both watching Get Back, the documentary? Or Chris, am I going to have to give you my Disney Plus login?
No, I've got it to watch. I haven't watched it yet. But yeah, I need to find the time. I've been working quite a lot. Excuses, but
it's incredible.
There's a few moments, and I hope it is similar for us. But not being a musician, it might be slightly different. So the moment where George Harrison and Ringo Starr are sat on the edge of a little stage, block your ears, Chris.
I'm just pushing the earphones into my ears so I can hear you better now.
Yawning while Paul McCartney picks up a bass. Just is literally playing about with chords, and then in 2 minutes, we now hear
Yeah.
what we know is going to be Get Back
Yeah.
it blew my mind. I was there going, shit, that's not how it happens, is it? Is that how you musicians do it? Because he's literally just titting about, isn't he? He's obviously had some chords in his mind, and you're there going, oh my gosh, he's just created that. And the same with Let It Be. And I tweeted that actually, because that was my one of my dad's favorite songs, and we had that at his funeral.
Yeah.
And so seeing Paul sat at a piano and just, it is incredible. It is incredible. What a festival, James.
Yeah.
What a
That's
festival.
knockout. Well, I'm aware that we've kept you for quite some
Far too
time
long.
now. So I think if we go to our last couple of questions, Alex.
I like this one because we are always looking for live recommendations. So live artist, band, whoever, who do you recommend that Chris and I and the listeners that we go and see live? Who do we need to see live?
Trying to think who I've seen recently. First Aid Kit, if they come around.
Oh,
That would be
now
really
we're
good.
talking.
Obviously Sam Fender and Phoebe Bridgers, who I've already mentioned, but yeah, First Aid Kit I saw at the Roundhouse before.
Wow.
Well, a few years ago. I was going to say before lockdown, but it's like maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. Laura Veers as well. She's a really good one. A kind of slightly more cult artist, so you might get to see her in a sort of smaller venue as well. VEIRS, Laura Veers. It's fantastic.
Oh, I'm ashamed to say I don't know. I don't know her, so that is exciting. Because
Well, we'll find something of
check
hers
that
and
out.
put it on. Is there a particular track that we should look out for? Because we can put it on your episode page on our website.
July Flame.
July Flame. Right, we
Okay.
will pop that on. And then the last question is really a live track or a live album or a live performance that's been captured on video, maybe it's on YouTube or whatever. Is there something that that's a go-to piece of live music that you really couldn't live without?
I'm trying to think. I think there's a particular Bon Iver song that I don't think I've never sort of seen it on any of I think it's called Hayward, Wisconsin. I've not seen it on any records. It was written for the first album, the Forever, Forever Ago record, and he plays it, and it's just an amazing song. So yeah, that's the one that springs to mind.
We'll
Brilliant.
put that on. That's a great recommendation.
Yeah,
because he's something else. He's amazing, isn't he?
he's great live as well. He's another one who, like, I'm kicking myself that he's not on at my festival.
Well, him and the Charlatans are texting each other now, saying, "Can't
bitching
believe
about
it."
me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
You know that blooming idiot, James Walsh. We're not going
Paul
to his...
McCartney, indeed.
Paul who? Paul who?
Brilliant.
James, thank you so much. Absolute
problem.
privilege, absolute pleasure. We shall get all those things onto to your webpage, and if you do get to your mum and dad's and you find that box with those ticket stubs in, you take pictures and you send them to us. And
Cool.
And I don't want to remind you, but I do. If you want to see Chris's Excel spreadsheet, just make sure you're listening.
Excellent.
James
Thanks,
Walsh
mate.
from Starsailor, thank you so much.
Cheers. No worries.
Mr. James Walsh there. What a fella. What a fella.
Just beautiful. Lovely man, lovely man. And in the intro, I told you that I went to see him before Christmas. And so if you listen to that whole interview, you will have been as surprised as Chris and I were to hear that one of the first songs he covered in one of his incarnations of his early bands was Spaceman by Babylon Zoo. And listener, I kid you not, I didn't buy this because I owned a copy of that on vinyl, 12-inch vinyl. So I found it, dug it out.
You took it off the wall.
I took it out of the frame, put it back in the sleeve, took it off my record player, and I took it with me as James was busking in Piccadilly tram station in the centre of Manchester as part of Tim Burgess's Vinyl Adventures Day. And which that was just lovely. Hearing his amazing voice echo in the tram station was just epic. And I presented him, listener, with said copy of Babylon Zoo's Spaceman, which brought me a lot of joy and a smirk on his face.
Well, I mean, the photo of you presenting it to James is actually on James's webpage on our website, gigstoriespodcast.com. And you're both wearing masks, and you can but you can see the grins behind the mask, and you can see the grins in the eyes, you know.
Well, I had it in a bag, and he literally, I could, obviously I was there, he just didn't know. He's like, oh, what's this? And he was genuinely taken aback. He was like, what? No way, that's brilliant. So it was good fun. Now, as it stands, Starsailor are still due to reschedule a few of the dates that were cancelled, and I believe that there's literally a handful of tickets remaining, and they're playing that album. So check out their website, keep an eye on their socials, and when those dates are rescheduled, we'll be going to Manchester. Get and see them, because they're a great band, and to hear that album in full, I can't wait.
Absolutely. They're also playing Neighborhood Festival as well.
Oh yes, that's right,
in Warrington.
And they'll be playing, I think they'll be playing a few festivals around the country in summer. And check out James's website and his solo dates, because he's just gorgeous and his music is just genuinely wonderful. So go and see James live too. So yeah, big thank you, James. What a gentleman, and what a privilege it was to chat. So you can find us as always on our socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gig Stories Pod. Send us your questions, send us your answers to all the questions that we ask. We love hearing from you, your first gigs, and seeing pictures of your merchandise and ticket stubs, and hearing about your favorite gigs and your worst gigs and your most riotous gigs. So keep in touch and keep a close eye, because we have got some brilliant guests coming up.
We've been having some people confirm for future episodes, and they are eye-wateringly good. So honestly, I cannot believe some of the guests who have agreed to come on. Elton John is going to be quite something. I really can't believe he's coming on. It's amazing.
And Demis Roussos.
Yeah. Wicked. I'm beside it. Bette Midler. Yeah. We're still to nail down a time and a date with Bette, but yeah.
It's going to be great. We've got some wonderful guests.
I was just going to say, with Bette Midler, she's not going to be in person. We're going to be doing it from a distance. Yes.
Oh my gosh, listener. Help me, please.
You don't get this gold. I can't believe we've not got a Patreon site. This should be the content that people pay for. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I just can't. Listeners, keep listening, please. So
in the name of God, please.
Like, subscribe, and tell all your family, friends, and all your enemies. Bette Midler, watch this space.
See you next time.
Ta-da.